morning. I'm Carlton Sharp, pastor of Faith Christian Center Church right here in Beaumont, Texas. And we're here on what's happening in our neighborhood. And today my special guest is Mr. Steve Vissor. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about myself. I'm born and raised in northern Michigan. I came down here. They told me you want to find a good wife, you better go south. So I went as far as I could and still speak the language. So I've been down here for close to 20 years now.
You know, I hear people say once they come here, they never leave.
You couldn't drag me back up north if you tried, but I love it here.
Now, Steve, you're part of Hedge Protection Ministries.
Yes,
Tell
sir.
us a little bit about that.
Okay, Hedge Protection Ministries was started by my partner, Steve Hinton, and I a couple years ago with the intention of helping churches implement security ministries within using their own personnel, their own volunteers to provide security ministries for their church.
Well, now this came out of the shooting that happened at First Baptist Church in Sutherland, Texas.
Well, actually, it started well before that.
Okay.
It started by my partner he'd gone to our own pastor and said, you know, we really need to take a look at what's going on in our facility and what we can do with security. Now, Steve had been a cop for 34 years. I was a cop for just under 10. And so he'd come to me and asked me to help him with that project. When he went in, he thought he would go in and just tell the pastor, hey, we need to get a company over here to do this.
It never works like that.
He walked out with a job. And somehow I got roped into it. So we're here now, and it's just our goal. God has laid it upon our hearts to get out there and help churches implement a program, not just give them information. They need a place to start. They need a system to follow. And they need training for each individual member of that team so they can better protect. And this is very important. The most important component of this, they need to have a security program that never interferes with the cause of Christ.
Right.
And that's what our training is designed to do. We want you to be properly protected, but never, ever, ever interfering with evangelism.
Now, you do a biblically based video training program.
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. We wanted a systematic approach. What we found was when we would go out and talk to churches, just like you, Pastor, you're going to realize, and the other pastors are out there's a lot of times you'll say something on Sunday, and come Monday, it's falling on deaf ears, right?
Exactly.
Trying to get people and trying to get churches to go from information to application is brutally difficult. And so what we were finding is going out and talking to these individual churches, we could help them, tell them what to do, but they didn't know how to actually implement it. So God laid it on our hearts to put together a program that actually teaches it. And I'll give you a short story on that. We were in Houston, Texas, Second Baptist Church, Ed Young's church, big security seminar. They come up there, they had a lot of political figures, and they gave out great information. And over the course of about 3 or 4 hours, when they finally finished up, the most telling question the entire night, a man stood up, he said, I come from a church of about 300 people.
Yeah.
He said, I like everything you're saying. Where can I go to get the information on how to do this?
Wow.
Crickets.
Wow.
They didn't have an answer. And I looked at my partner and I said, you know, this is what God's called us to do. And that's how we got started with Edge, putting it together. And it's online, it's video-based. So as a pastor, if you wanted to plug your church into it, you find a leader, you plug the leader into it, and we walk him step by step. We show him what the framework of the program should look like. We teach them what the individual positions should look like. It's all based on deterrence. See, here's the key. Why we say deterrence is people all talk about, let's do this active shooter training, okay? Well, do you want to deal with something inside your sanctuary, or would you prefer to deal with it out in the parking lot?
Outside in the parking lot.
Our whole program is centered around deterrence. These criminals, they want to be successful. The reason they target these smaller, soft targets is because they're not going to have much resistance.
Yeah.
If they perceive resistance, they're going to go elsewhere. Do you remember the movie The Godfather?
Yeah.
All right, in The Godfather, remember the head Godfather, the Godfather. I mean, he's been shot. He's at the hospital, and he's got a security detail there, and the police call off the security detail so that the bad guys can come and get him. And I don't know if you remember, but I think it was Enzo the florist. He was coming up to pay his respects, and Michael Corleone gets there, and he realizes there's no protection. He comes down, he grabs Enzo, and Enzo, he says, listen, he raises up his collar, he makes him look like a gangster. He says, come here, put your hand in your pocket and stand out front. And Enzo is shaking so bad he can't stand it. But he and Michael are standing out front. The bad guys roll up. They look at him and they figure, oh, they got protection. And they drive on.
Yeah,
and the whole time, Enzo, he goes to light a cigarette for him, and Enzo was like, just so scary. They wanted to be successful. It was just that deterrence. And the crazy thing is they didn't know what that guy knew or what he didn't know. They just knew that there was a deterrence there. Right. They weren't going to be successful, so they pressed on.
Now, there might be a pastor watching today that might say, well, I have a small congregation,
right?
But your program is scalable for any size ministry.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to make this clear too. There's going to be some indigent churches out there as well. We'll give the program to them.
Okay.
The whole purpose of this, God didn't call us to make money on this. He called us to secure churches. So if you got some indigent churches out there that say, we don't have a lot of money, don't let that stand in the way. We can help you.
Now, your program provides a framework to build team leaders and the whole team. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. The goal is to start with, as a pastor, your role is to find the leader.
Right. Now that's interesting because most pastors want to take the responsibility, but you said today in our lunch, Pastor, listen, you don't want to do this.
No, it's not your job. God's called you to evangelize. He's called you to minister to the flock.
Right.
You have enough responsibilities. You take on the role of the head of security, you're now interfering with what God's called you to do. And that goes against everything that we teach, that this has to be a biblically based program that where security never interferes with the cause of Christ. So, if we can help you, you find the leader, we'll train the leader, and you won't have to worry. It's a headache off your plate. And I promise you, in the end, you're going to feel so much more comfortable because you're going to realize they got my back.
Yeah. Now, you also come out and identify areas that a church may need to address.
Absolutely. Pastor, we've created something called the Trilateral Security Ministry Model. And what that is there's three components to any effective security ministry. There has to be a spiritual component. If there's not a spiritual component, what are we doing? I mean, the Bible tells us clearly, unless the Lord builds a city, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over a city, the watchmen watch in vain. Okay? So, one of the first things we need to do is get your people praying about this program. Get your people supporting this program as a ministry. If they treat it like a task that's just got to be completed, it won't be effective. It's not a job to be done. It's a ministry. All right? Your music ministry. Right? What are they? They're just people serving people in an attempt to help them better prepare to worship, right?
Exactly.
Security ministry is no different. You could have Billy Graham in the pulpit. And if Mama's sitting back there worried about her son in the nursery, it's going to sound like wah, 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 wah. So they're serving in a capacity to bring calmness to the spirit of the people of the church, who then now can worship and praise the Lord without. So it's a ministry. It needs to be treated as such. The second component of that is the human component. We think this is so important that we get our own people involved, okay, serving. The reason for that is if they understand that they can't interfere with the cause of Christ, now when they see a new person coming through the door, it's not automatically a threat. But they can evaluate it, understanding that, okay, this is a hospital for broken people, right?
Yep.
This is where restoration comes. If you can be aggressively friendly as somebody's coming through the door, hey man, we are so glad to see you today. You begin to look into a criminal's eyes, they don't like that. My years of law enforcement tell me that. They're going to feel uncomfortable. But by being aggressively friendly, by knowing how to read people, by being able to teach them the 5 different ways people communicate, and they're able to now assess and realize what's going on, they're in a much better position to determine friend or foe. And they're not going to intimidate. The people who are coming in for nefarious reasons are not going to be comfortable. They're going to leave.
Right. The
people who aren't going to come in, or who are coming in for the right reason, are going to be thankful someone's greeting them, someone's being friendly to them, and someone's encouraging. Now, let me get to the third component of this, and this is, so you got the spiritual component, you got the technological, or the human component, and now it's the technology component. That's using cameras.
Right.
Using radios. You know, a guy that has a radio and in his ear can communicate with other team members. They can spot something in the parking lot. You can get help in that parking lot before you're ever dealing with somebody inside the sanctuary. Those 3 components, you take any one of those 3 components out of the equation, and you reduce the effectiveness tremendously. But all 3 of those areas addressed, there's a synergistic effect that makes it exponentially more effective.
Now, you also do de-escalation training because
Yes, sir.
you don't want somebody shooting in the sanctuary.
Absolutely.
And so the de-escalating training is most important for the church.
Well, de-escalation training can resolve some things pretty quickly without, the way I learned about de-escalation was as a young police officer. I'm just going to be honest. I like to fight. I did. I was young and dumb. And I remember one of the older officers finally sat me down and he said, "Look, any cop can fight. We train you to fight." He said, "The smart ones don't."
Wow.
And he said, every time you get in an altercation and people are running to your rescue, what's happening? You're putting their lives in jeopardy. You're putting their lives in danger. So de-escalation, he said, let's just train you to start trying to de-escalate these situations. Let me see how many situations you can get out of where you would go to use the force where you don't. And it became a game. And it was something that, okay, now every time I could de-escalate something and take tensions down and get out without an altercation, he was happy. Your boss is happy, you're happy, right?
Yeah.
What we want to do is we want to train people to understand that you don't always have to escalate something, that by, and Christians do this naturally, but by talking it, by working with them, by asking questions, by trying to read them, you can very often calm that situation down so you're not involved in any kind of altercation. The goal is to get this dealt with in a Christian manner. The Christian manner isn't just walking up and slapping them upside the head, right?
Right.
We got to treat them like Christians would treat them. We got to respond the way a Christian would respond. And that's through de-escalation. What would Jesus do?
Yeah. Now, one of the things that you spoke about earlier today was the technology that churches can use in order to assist. And you dealt with a story, a situation that happened.
Right.
Share that story.
There was a church in Southeast Texas. And by the way, Hedge has a policy where we'll never identify a church by name involved in an incident. We do a lot of sharing of information.
Right,
and the last thing we want to do is discourage a church from sharing with us because we're going to put them out as though, hey, this happened at your church. We'll never do that. We want to be able to share the information because it's helpful to other churches. So in this particular situation, small church, Southeast Texas, a couple's been coming for a couple of weeks. The husband had never been there. The mom had been coming, been bringing the baby. The husband comes that week. They drop the baby off at the nursery. They pick him up, and they immediately go and report that the child's been sexually assaulted. So the detective that handled that case was able to go back in. That church had cameras throughout.
Wow.
The detective was able to watch that child from the moment it came through the door all the way into the nursery. The entire time it was at the nursery, the parents pick it up and walk it back out the door, and it was able to prove that nothing happened in the church. Now, we don't know if the guy and the mom were trying, a lot of these sexual assaults are family situations, and we don't know if they were trying to hide something. We don't know what the thought process was there.
Yeah.
But we do know this. The reputations of those ladies that worked in that nursery were absolutely in check because through technology they were able to prove that they were safe, that child was never touched. Now, let me ask you this.
Wow.
Think about the people who work in your nursery. And I'm going to ask the other pastors here, think about the ladies working in your nursery. Think about your youth pastor. Think about the people working in the children's ministry. Are their reputations worth protecting?
And the church.
And the church, because let's face it,
Yeah.
you're a growing church. Where are you going to get attacked? What's the quickest way to take your church down? I'm going to share some statistics with you. 23 sexual assaults are reported every week in the United States of sexual crimes committed on faith-based properties. 23. Now, this is going to blow your mind. FBI statistics tell us that 95% of sexual assaults go unreported.
Wow.
That means 437 total sexual assaults happening on faith-based properties each week.
Wow.
Now, let's say the FBI is off by half because the government does this by months, right?
Plus.
Okay. That's still 1,000 a month. That's 12,000 a month. Okay. Technology combined with the human effort. And we have a program that we're putting together right now teaching sexual assault prevention awareness. 1 in 5 people within your congregation has been a victim of sexual assault.
Wow.
1 in 5. That's 20%. If 20% of your congregation had cancer, you'd have a cancer survivor program, wouldn't you?
That's right.
20%. The problem is they're not going to identify. They're not going to come up and say, hey, Pastor, this happened to me.
Yeah, I'm one of the 20%.
I'm one of the 20%.
Wow.
So, you look at that and you deal with that, and I'm going to be honest, putting this together was tough. I don't like facing it.
Yeah.
But let me ask this question. What if we face our demons? What if we get out there? What if we're able to train?
Proactive.
Exactly. That's one of the 5 principles that we teach. We have to be proactive. Right? The Bible's very clear. In Psalms, it tells us twice, right?
Yeah.
The prudent perceive danger and take precaution, where the simpletons go blindly on and suffer the consequences. The Solomon thought that was so important, he put it in twice, right? Like they weren't listening the first time.
Let me say it again. Yeah.
But my point is, my wife is a sexual assault detective. I managed to get a hold of one of her FBI profiler books on the behavioral analysis of a sexual predator. 97% of sexual assaults are committed by what we call acquaintance molesters, right? 97%. Right? Everybody's heard stranger danger, right?
Yep.
That's only 3%. 97%. What if we could teach your congregation? What if we could teach your parents? What if we teach the people working in your children's ministry to begin to identify the behaviors of a sexual predator? Sexual predators, according to this book, and according to the FBI, they target churches. Because we as Christians, we're so trusting.
Right.
We come in, we're accepting of people. We can't imagine doing that to somebody else, so we wouldn't think that they would do that. But you get somebody, here's the other thing. Average offender offends 12 times before he's ever caught.
Wow.
So pastors think, well, we do background checks. Well, great.
I was just going to say that.
That's great. You need to do background checks, but don't for a second believe that you're protected because you had a background check.
Wow.
Now then, but if you were to teach the members in your church how to visibly understand and be aware of sexual predators and the behavioral patterns, now then they can look at something and say, this does not seem right. That person could be removed from that children's ministry before they have a chance to offend. Not only that, somebody coming into your children's ministry and you say, you got to go through this sexual predator training, and they begin to realize that we're training everybody around them to recognize them. They're like, this ain't the place for me.
Yeah, I'm out.
I'm going to get on that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because again, they want to be successful. They don't want to get caught. Sexual predators, for the most part, are highly intelligent. Okay? That's hard to believe, but I mean, it's truthfully that. High IQ.
Yeah.
Very personable. They breed trust. Part of their whole mentality is to just fool everybody. Okay? At the same time, they want to be successful. If we can properly train to avoid that, how valuable is that to your kids coming up? What if we just prevent one? I watch my wife as she deals with these sexual predators and whatnot. It's not just the damage to the child.
No.
It's the damage to the family. It's the damage to the predator's family. It's the long-term effects.
That's right. That's right.
We talk about it. I guarantee you that if you're anything like me, 40 years later, you're still dealing with it.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's horrible. But we can't change that. What we can do, educate.
And mentioning education, real soon on March the 3rd, you're going to be doing a workshop. So tell us about the workshop.
Okay.
And where it's going to be at.
All right. The workshop is going to be at Christian Fellowship Church, which is on, it's in Beaumont, and I'm sorry, I'll have to get to the address.
I'll put the information there on the screen.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
It's going to be Saturday, March 3rd. It's a free seminar. We're not charging for any of this training. What we're going to do is we're going to come in, and anybody who's interested in learning more about church security, anybody who wants to implement a church security ministry, we're going to lay out the HEDGE program. We're going to go in depth, and we're going to talk about everything from active shooters to de-escalation training to what it should look like, why deterrence is the key. Everybody wants to talk about active shooters in Sutherland Springs.
Yeah.
Pastor, most of these pastors, I hate to say this, and hopefully I'm not offending anybody, but a lot of these pastors think, I got 3 guys with license to carry, I'm good to go. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
You're not. These gentlemen, if you got someone licensed to carry, they absolutely need to be training use of force. But this whole seminar is to bring all the churches in this area. And, Texas Pastors Council has a model that says, all colors, all corners.
Right.
It's not something that it's only for this church or that church. We don't care what the denomination is. We want churches, we want the houses of God to be protected. So it's going to be March 3rd, 2018. It's going to be at the Christian Fellowship Church there in Beaumont. It's going to be from 8 a.m. to 12. After that, they'll take a little lunch break, and then we're going to stick around and answer any questions we can.
Okay, so is there anything else you want to share with us in our closing moments?
Pastor, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to sit down and share this with you. You know, our website is called www.securemychurchnow.com. If you open up that website, you'll see my smiling face. If you don't see my smiling face, you got the wrong site.
You got the wrong site.
Look for the ugly guy. If you see the ugly guy, you're at the right place. And our whole program it's designed to be inexpensive. It's subscription based on the attendance and how many people you're going to need to get trained. It's a monthly recurring subscription. And the reason we do that is because we want to keep you up to date. We're rolling this thing out, but ultimately what we want to be able to say is, hey, this incident happened over in the county, right? But you need to be on the lookout for this particular person and give you pictures of that person and know that you can put that right. Good. We're in the process of creating a Hedge app, which will allow individual team members to get notifications right on their phone if we've got a suspect in a particular church situation. Because what happens is these people target these churches. On our website, there's actually a video where we went in and my wife and my partner interviewed a lady who'd broken into over 300 churches. And she told us exactly why she targeted churches. She told us exactly what she did, how she set it up, the way they would work through it. I mean, what's a better way to learn but to talk to the criminal?
That's right.
And she laid it out there. Just laid it out there.
Wow.
And said they targeted churches because it was a soft target. What we want to do is teach you how to harden that target without hardening our hearts to those outside those walls who need Christ.
Wow. Hey, listen, those of you who are watching today, that seminar is going to be March the 3rd, this year, 2018, 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock at
Christian Fellowship.
Christian Fellowship is 3950 Point Parkway here in Beaumont. Pastor Rick White is the pastor there. Again, I'll put the information right down on the screen, and I'll also, you'll see right now the Hedge Protection Ministries information that's on the screen. So I want to thank Steve for coming today and sharing with us this vital information. Pastors, don't take this lightly. Their ministry is to all size churches. You might be sitting there and saying, well, listen, I don't have a large congregation. Well, that's not the question to ask. The question to ask is, do I need help in securing the congregation that you're over? That's what's important. So don't, listen, make plans to be at this seminar, March the 3rd, 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock at 3950 Point Parkway in Beaumont, Texas. You must be there. Christian Fellowship Church. It's a must. Don't take this lightly. We've seen the incidents that are happening in our country today, and, you know, churches are a soft target, as he stated earlier. So don't think that just because you are a church that the person, that the criminal that wants to do something wrong won't come to your church. So take advantage of this opportunity. Again, I want to thank Steve for joining us. I want to thank you for joining us on what's happening in our neighborhood, and we will see you next time on our broadcast.